So let's welcome Rebecca up on stage with me tonight. That's great. All right. So this is Rebecca. What a powerful night. I'm like, wow, that was so good. So Rebecca, if you don't know her, I'm guessing a lot of you do, but if you don't, she's been with Pathway for about 5 years. I thought it was like way longer because you're so involved. She actually leads the Grief Share here at Pathway Church. You also see her here on Sundays. She also leads a table Wednesday nights. She just has a heart of gold, but I'm going to get out of her way and just not really interview her. I'm just up here to sit with her. And so you have really special things to share tonight. And so I'll just go ahead and say, it's all you.
Hi. Okay, something spectacular happened to me this summer. And I told Cindy, and she said, could you tell your story? Well, I've got to start from the very beginning. I was born in Dallas, Texas in 1944. And I had a wonderful family. My dad was a dentist, taught dentistry in Baylor University in Dallas. My mother was a homemaker until we got to be teenagers. I had 2 sisters and a brother, and I was the oldest. So it was an ordinary family. We always went to church at the Methodist church, and I was somewhat active in school. I wasn't too academically, I wasn't an A student. I was more like a C, but I liked art. So then when it came time for college, I was prepared to go to a school, but I wasn't sure I was going to make it. I got accepted about 30 miles away at the Texas Women's University. So I went for my freshman year, and I really started to flourish in college. My grades went up. I got on the dean's list, and I had lots of fun. Then I came back during the summer, and I was very active in high school in junior achievement. And for 2 years, I represented to the national conference and went there in Indiana. And I was a contestant, I guess, or a candidate for Secretary of the Year. And then also in 1963, the year I graduated from high school, I was Miss J.A. of Dallas. So it was kind of fun. And then after my first year in college, they asked me to come up and be a group counselor. And I says, okay, that sounds fun. So I went back to Indiana for the conference, and I met this one guy, and he seemed pretty interesting, but he was from Detroit, and he was like 8 years older than me, but we had some nice conversations. Then I went back to Dallas, and then back to Texas Women's University as a sophomore. And I was, you've all heard of the sexual revolution? Well, I was part of that, because what happened, I decided after talking to all the gals in the dorm, I was the only virgin. And I thought, wow, I'm free. I can do whatever I want to do. So we had a dance with Texas A&M. They had the cadets come in September, and they said, just have a dance, meet a guy, and have fun. And these are nice guys, And I said, oh, cool, Well, at the end of the evening, I went into his back seat of his car, and I did the deed. Oh, no remorse either. I was no longer a virgin. So then what happened 6 weeks later? Guess what? My friend didn't come. I got tested and I was pregnant. Then I was devastated, and I felt so stupid. Like, how could I be so careless? I didn't know anything what to do. And there I was. And I finally called my dad. And I couldn't dare even talk to my mother. And I said, I'm in trouble. So I did talk to the guy that I met. He was a really nice guy. He had just graduated from Texas A&M and was going on to Rice University to get his master's in engineering. But all he said was, oh, I couldn't be the father. I'm sure you have other guys too, before me. So I just, I don't want any part of it. So I had no relationship with him, just a one-night stand. So my dad, he arranged to take me to San Antonio, Texas. We flew down there, and there was the Methodist Mission for home for unwed women. And I think I'm going to read a little bit about this, that the home was really very nice. They did testing and counseling, and they had crafts to do and things like that. But I felt so stupid, and I felt like God, I prayed. I remember getting on my face on the floor and just going, God, please take care of this. And he never did. He just let it be. It was nature. It's the way it should be, So I said, okay. So then this was right after I finished the first semester, and after Christmas, I went there in January. I told my whole family, my sisters and others, friends, that I was going to go up to Chicago to an art school. And then on June 3rd, 1965, I gave birth to a little boy. And I remember that while I was in the hospital, they said, would you like to see the baby? And I said, yes, I want to see the baby. Because I had heard different things, like they could be deformed or whatever, I don't know. So I said, okay. And so I remember holding this little boy in my arms and counting his toes, counting his little fingers, and just holding him and kind of saying, you're going to have a really nice family. The people here at the home, they interviewed a lot of people, and they found a mother and dad for you, that you're going to have a 6-year-old brother. They can't have any more kids, but they're going to love you and provide for you everything that I couldn't do. So I gave him up and went home, and I was really never quite the same. I didn't go back to TW. I enrolled in SMU there locally, but after a couple of months, I just basically didn't make it. But before that, I went back to school. I went back to the conference again as a counselor up in Indiana, and I met that other guy that I was telling you from Detroit. His name was Dave. And when I got there, he soon looked me up, and I go, we talked about it. He said, what did you do in the summer? And I said, well, it was easy to talk to him, and I said, I'm going to tell you everything. And I told him the story of what happened. And he said, I only wish you had told me, then I would have married you, and I would have been the father of your child. And that really endeared me. It just, and then I went back to Dallas, and he went back to Detroit, but he kept calling me. And those days, going to long-distance calls were very, very expensive. So about a couple of months later, my dad was saying, do you know what our phone bill is? And I said, yeah, sorry. But anyway, it just turned out that within about a month or so, Dave said, would you be interested in marrying me? And I said, yes. So no, on November 28th of 1965, we got married in my church. It was very small, but sweet. I had a bridal shower, just nice, you know. And we packed up my stuff in the car, and we drove back to Detroit. I was so ashamed of what I had done. I felt like a burden to my parents, and I grabbed the first real opportunity that I could to leave. And there I was in Detroit, and I had no family, no friends, not even a car. We didn't go to church, so I managed, you know. But in July of 1967, I had a son, and we named him Jeffrey Alexander for J.A. And then in May of 1971, we had our second son, Stuart Fletcher. And, you know, but it still wasn't everything. It was like we had a real bump, and that's another story. But in 1980, I got a divorce because he was not faithful, and I just had enough. And then I also started my own business. And doing that, I was a very successful woman. I owned my own insurance agency. But then, 8 years after I'd been divorced, I met my current husband of almost 35 years, and Gary. And so we met and got married, and so when his kids started having grandkids, I always thought, gee, I wonder if I do have any grandkids. And I always wondered what happened to that little boy, and I always prayed for him, and after a while, I even tried different ways of trying to communicate to see how I could. And about 10 years ago, I tried a DNA and system, and it didn't work. I found a lot of fifth cousins, but nothing. No, and then finally, and I did tell my two sons that they had a half-brother somewhere. I was as soon as they could understand. But I always wanted to know, and finally, just even this beginning of this year, I says, I need to know, Lord, if he's still alive. You know, he's up there in age, and I have no idea what kind of life he had. Well, my daughter-in-law said, why don't you try this DNA system, Ancestry DNA? And I said, okay. So in April, I did the swab, sent in the test, and it's a weird processing, okay. And then finally, we did it. We got it all done. Great. And then about in July or June, I got this email. And it says, you have a match. Your match is a boy, a man now, and you're the mom. And I had just put my name in as RJ. So there was a link where you could message this person. So I prayed, and I said, okay, I'll send this information. And I sent the information about me. I says, if you were born in 1965 in San Antonio, I am your mother. Wow, I said it, and I was so hoping it would be, and he didn't answer right away. And Jamie, I remember talking to Randy, because he had just told us about how he had found his birth parents. And I says, I found my son that I gave away for adoption, and I've sent information to him, and I'm hoping and praying he'll answer. That night and we prayed together, the power of prayer. So what happened is that night he answered back, and he says, wow, this is a surprise. Can you tell me, he had two questions. Can you tell me your full name? And also, what were the circumstances that you got pregnant? And I can understand the two. I wasn't raped, and I gave him my full name. And we started sending pictures. And I sent him pictures of me and Dave. Well, I didn't send Dave, but I sent me and Gary, and I sent the two sons that I have. And I says, I have Jeffrey and I have Stuart. And, oh, by the way, do you know what his name is? Jeffrey. I have two Jeffs. Talk about confusing. But anyway, it's really nice. And then I got some pictures from him. And I got a picture of him. And I got a picture of 4 grandkids. And there's the family. You can see him on the screen. He got married in 91, and he has 3 daughters and a son, and ages 20 to 27. The 27-year-old, she's going to get married in April, and they all are highly educated. I mean, PhD, master's degrees, biochemistry, whatever. And he works for Dell Industries, and and I found him, and he actually called me on September the 29th, and we talked for half an hour. So it's been slow, we're not pushing, but I just know that God, in his own timing, 58 years, he patiently waited, and I did too, for the right timing. And so one burning question that I had for him was, are you a Christian? And he said, yes, I grew up with my family. And another thing, 6 months after he was adopted, his birth parents found out they were pregnant again, and he has a sister beside an older brother. But anyway, they were in the Methodist church all his growing up. But when he met his wife, she was Catholic, and he turned to her faith. So yes, he is a Christian. My story turned out to God's plans and timing, not mine. He waited 58 years to let me know my son was alive and happy and had a beautiful family. Day 3 of our heart work, and yes, Jamie, that is one of my favorite days that I studied this week. Timing is everything, is especially meaningful to me. It's about trusting God even when there are detours and delays, which Priscilla said tonight. On page 152 of our lesson, in Discerning the Voice of God by Priscilla, she quoted Ecclesiastes 3:1. There is an appointed time for everything, your everything. Also on page 145, regarding Luke 4:27, a last question. Can you see the hand of the Lord moving on his divine purpose being served through these events? My answer is yes, yes, yes. Once we truly develop a personal relationship with Jesus and trusting him in all events of our life, it changes everything. Thank you.